Hello, I'm Patrice Tennis, founder of Coffee and Conversation and a licensed marriage and family therapist. Welcome to our podcast, Coffee and Conversation with Black Women. I say this all the time, I'm going to say it again. I believe that everything we do to improve our daily functioning and decision-making will help lead to overall wellness. Today we're going to discuss, can Black women raise Black boys, and what impact do we have on their development? I see podcasts like this all over, and I really see us getting beat up. I mean, we're kind of getting dragged, and I think there's blame to go on both sides, but I don't want to do podcasts about blame and guilt. I want to do solution-focused podcasts. I want us to find a resolve for the problem, if there's a problem. So first we're going to introduce our ladies, and then we're going to dive into what are we doing to the Black boys and how are we impacting their development as men. Miss Kiana, introduce yourself.
Hello, ladies. I'm Kiana Rowe. I'm the program manager for Coffee and Conversation. I'm also a law enforcement officer for a local agency in our community. I'm very happy to be here to really kind of break apart and peel back the layers on this topic this morning.
And my name is Sharon Miller, and I'm the social worker for Coffee and Conversation, and I'm a retired state parole officer, and I have a son.
There you go. Yes, son.
Okay,
yes.
okay.
Grandson, good. Miss Ruby.
Yes. Hi, I'm Ruby Davis, and I am here to shed some light on the upbringing of my son. I work in a social work arena, and I help children and families find services for their developmental disability.
So the first thing is we have to be transparent. You can't change a problem unless you acknowledge it. So let's start with you, Miss Sharon. You have a Black son and a Black grandson. Mm-hmm. So what did you do right and what did you do wrong?
That's...
How did you impact your son?
What did I do right and what did I do wrong? I'll start with the things that I now know of a different direction. And I won't even say that I did it wrong. I'll say having the lack of knowledge that I now have and the things that I now know, because raising children, as we all know, there's really no book on it. When you first have a child, you're just trying to do what your parents did for you. But for my son, I think when he was maybe, I would say 11 or 12, and he was starting to develop into his own little manhood, I think that's a critical age for young Black boys, to make sure that the role models are there in their life, the things that they're involved in, and that you really pay attention to their development. And at that time, I don't want to seem like I'm making an excuse, but I was going through a divorce and didn't really give him what I feel he needed at that time. Didn't see the direction he was going in until later, because he eventually got involved in gangs. And that rocked our whole world.
Right.
So as far as doing things, as you say, maybe not doing things the right way, is really paying attention to their development and what direction they're going. The things that I can say that I think I did right, as he got older, I was noticing more of what the negativity, and I try to put the positive things in his life and getting him involved, because, they start missing school, that kind of thing. So it was like more of a homeschool thing, and getting him involved in firefighters program. And he was doing really well, because now you're around a lot of good Black role models and those kind of things. And just really getting him into the counseling that he needed, and just doing those kind of things, and really spending more time and focusing on him. And I think the biggest thing, I wanted him to respect women, because he was getting to the point where he was being disrespectful. He was being rude. He wasn't following my rules, things that I wanted him to do. There was times when I had to lock him out the house at 16. You can't come in here. Calling the police on him at 16, saying, get him before I do something to him. You know, so trying to fight against what he was developing and picking up on in society. So that caused a lot of chaos in the home, and because I had two younger daughters. So trying to keep up with all of that and stay focused, just trying to do the best that I could as a mother. And I always think about this one song by, I want to say it's Eminem, when he talks about his mother and not being there and the things that she didn't do and everything. And I would always tell my son, that's a story that you will never be able to tell about me, because I am trying to do everything that I possibly can to direct you and guide you in the right direction. And it seemed like the harder you fight and the more you do, the more the fight and the more opposite they go.
Yeah, they resist it.
Yeah, that resisted.
So Ruby's got a black son. I do not have a black son, but I feel like I have some insight on the topic, but that's why I wanted women who have sons. So Ruby, are we the problem in raising black sons?
Definitely not the problem.
Okay.
And most definitely should be the solution.
Okay.
Because like Sharon, I separated from my children's father when they were growing up also, and about that same critical age of adolescence, that's when he started to take a turn. And I always knew my son was different, an individual, thinker and doer. And so I actually embraced that and tried to get him in the programs that would allow him to be himself, you know, and develop at his rate. And I don't know if that backfired or not, but, you know, between private school and charter schools and more streamlined individual programs and counseling, all these things, and definitely exposure. You know, I made sure they had vacations and they saw family regularly. And when his father wasn't in the home, I made sure that I exposed him to uncles and other male-guided activities. And so with all this that I did, including church and other things that we think is going to make a healthy person stronger, he still fought against it. At, you know, an early age, elementary school, junior high school, I started seeing all this. And so I poured everything into it, as well a full-time mother and 2 daughters. So we have a similar, you know, timeline with our sons. And he had 2 younger sisters. And so I wanted to make sure the things he was doing didn't negatively influence them and impact them. And so it was a constant struggle. And as soon as he got to high school, his freshman year, he just started cutting. For what? You know, this is where you wanted to go. Why don't you attend? He had no specific reason, but it was just basically the children he was hanging around with. I guess they interest him in not going to school, and so he stopped going. So consequently, he got in trouble with the law. And consequently, he spent several years behind bars, off and on. And he just turned 33 last month. He still is not on a career path, but at least he's talking about a career. And so he makes attempts to, you know, work regular jobs and seek out training programs that interest him. So I just want him to stay out of jail and stay healthy. And I've done as much as I could, and I'll still help him if necessary. But I can't be the man that he's supposed to be. He has to do that.
And I'll say, I was going to say one other thing about what Ruby was saying. I look back at there being a father in the home. And I think that's a great impact.
Sure.
Because I look at I have a brother, and my brother had a definite fear of my father. Mm-hmm. And my son got to the point where he no longer feared me. Mm. And it was more like, you can whoop me, but, he was like 6'3", 205 pounds. What am I going to do?
I hear a lot of women talking about there are no consequences that our children fear. And that could even be with a female child. When you don't have consequences that your children respect,
right,
they're going to do whatever they want to do. Mm-hmm. And that is, maybe having a man in the home would be a benefit to us. Kiana?
Yeah, so just listening to both of your stories, and I am a mother. I have three girls, and I want my girls to have healthy partners. And so it's important. So I'm really happy to talk about this topic. You guys both mentioned that around 11, 12, that critical age, I think what we didn't really talk about is kind of what we see now. So what are our Black men? First of all, what is successful? What do we see these Black men becoming and who they are? And what is the impact with single mothers that we have not, I don't want to say not intact homes, but for all practical purposes, it's a broken home because we have single moms raising these boys. Do you think that you as a Black woman can give that Black boy all he needs in order to be well, in order to be this success? That's what I really want to hear, because, or is it necessary to have?
I think it's possible.
Is it necessary? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely.
Okay. I don't know. Like I'm just milling about because I don't know. I don't know. I was raised by a single mom. And so I didn't know what I don't know, like the impact that my dad could have had. I see my husband interacting with his daughters, and I'm like, wow, that is what a healthy relationship between a father and daughter should be that I didn't get.
Yeah.
So we think we can, but I don't know that we can. And I'm just throwing it out there because I'm like, I don't know that we have all of the tools.
As a therapist, what I see in the clients, a lot of female clients, a lot of broken homes, that's what we have a lot of in our underserved communities. And I see women looking to meet their needs while raising children, because we don't stop looking to fulfill ourselves while we are trying to be the mother and the one woman who goes to work, and you have to take care of the home and the dog, but you still want to take care of yourself. Do we ever think that sometimes our needs get in the way of our attention or sacrifice to our sons?
Oh, most definitely.
I didn't expect that.
Oh, yes.
Really?
Oh, definitely.
Not just their sons, daughters too.
Well,
I mean,
too,
yeah,
but with life.
Just being a single parent, I would think obviously our needs. We're looking for our personal, relationships, love, maybe. If you are the sole breadwinner, what does that look like in terms of are we working two jobs?
Career,
so now my presence isn't even in the home anymore that these children need. So are perhaps our boys, or we're talking about boys today, are they parentified then? Are they the ones that have to now step up because we're out, working two jobs? What does that look like?
Most definitely. I had high expectations of my son. He has an older sister, but she was already out of the home when I was separated from their dad and raising the three younger ones. In my quest for a career and to have a life of my own, of course, sometimes the children get put on the back burner. Never neglect.
Right. But I think there has to be a balance.
They made it to school every day unless they were sick, and they made it to their doctor's appointments. And, we did all the family things that I thought would direct them to a positive human being. But I had expectations of him to fill in, meet the girls at the bus stop when I couldn't be there. Whatever it took, can you warm up their dinner? I'm going to be late, whatever. In the midst of having expectations of him to help fill in where his daddy fell short and where I was not available, it could have had an impact on how he viewed things or how he approached things. But even if I didn't expect him to pitch in and help around the house, he still wouldn't have been allowed to run the streets
Right.
or sit on the video game all day and night. I still would have set limitation.
True.
Right.
I want to ask a question from a general place. Do we as Black women think that, and I'm not saying men are blameless, but this topic is about Black women and raising children.
Right.
Okay, we'll talk to the men about that later. Do we bring poor examples of men in our homes when we date? I'm just saying, life gets hard. And so who we bringing home, who is he around? I talk about clients. I learn a lot from them. Sometimes my clients tell me the men that they bring home don't even speak to their children. They don't want a relationship with,
The family unit.
Yeah, they just want the relationship they want.
The woman.
And so, are we thinking about how that impacts our children? When I was in Youth Authority, I always have a story. I worked for Youth Authority for years. I like Sharon, was in correctional law enforcement for many, many years. And I was eating dinner. I always cooked before I left home. We didn't have money for going out. And so I'm eating this dinner, and this ward kept walking up, and he was, "That sure smells good, Miss Tevis. What is that?" I said, "This is my dinner. Can you stand back?" And he was like, "Do you cook that for your children?" I said, "Yes." He goes, "Oh, your children are lucky." I'm thinking, in my world, we cook for our children. What are you talking about, And he said, "Yeah, my mom used to open up a can of beans." Now, whether or not it was true, and we ate the beans, but the man had steak over his beans, cut steak up over his beans, and they ate the beans without steak. Now, if this is the sort of thing that is happening, it would seem to me to be problematic that we could be traumatizing our children just in the act of trying to find the right person and making poor decisions, which we all do. And so how does our social life impact how we present as mothers to Black children, to Black boys especially?
And see, I always tried to make sure that I stayed conscious of that.
But did you do a good job?
Because I would think that I did a good job.
Okay.
And at that point, making that decision at that point, because I eventually remarried. But prior to that, the first time I went out on a date, I made sure that my kids were with their aunt. It was going to be an auntie night, mama can get away a little bit, just to go out on a date. But I made sure that their needs were met prior to even going and doing what I wanted to do. And that person never met my children.
Well, that's a good thing. They don't need to meet everybody.
You don't need to meet my kids. You need to know that I have children, and I'm not going to always be available. If you call, can you want to come over, want to get together? My children come first. And that was number one. And of course, that eventually
I have
some
another
other
question.
thing came.
Sorry, but do we let our anger of failed relationships impact how we allow the ex to have access to his children?
I would say no.
I would say no.
So we're not the kind that say,
I would just say I did.
You're not going to see your kids because, they're mad.
Now, people have said, "Oh, I wouldn't let him see it. I wouldn't let him come around." And I said, "No, I'm not going to do that to my children. I'm going to allow them to have whatever time they want. If he show up, because a lot of it was, do you make a date and time, I'm coming to pick up the kids. And you don't show up.
Right.
And the kids are sitting there waiting, got the bags packed, ready to go. And so, of course, as a mom, it's like, oh, this is opportunity for me.
Right.
So I'm going to plan a little something for me to go somewhere after the children are gone. Then you don't show up. So I got to cancel what I'm doing because you haven't shown up to pick up the children.
Right.
So I never didn't allow. And maybe there was times when I should have said, hey, if you're not here at this certain time, whatever, then don't bother to come.
But the good thing is you allowed him to father his children if he was available.
If he was available, oh yeah,
definitely.
There's a couple things too, and I think about. I remember my mom was a single mom, raising my brother and myself, and I remember, people at church, oh, you did such a good job. They'd ask her, what'd you do to, and she would say, I can't take credit or blame. If they're good, I'm not even going to take the credit. If they're bad, I've done what I can do. Right. So knowing that though, like just thinking about that piece of it, and you mentioned, Ruby, about your son being, has been incarcerated before. So recognizing perhaps things that could be missing from that mate. What does that person bring? Is it still possible that we can fill in those spaces with, you said church, you say, is it role models? What can we do now as we know that this is happening? What are things that we can do really to supplement in these spaces? Like,
there's a lot of community
because
organizations that we could send, we have to make the sacrifice to take them out to Little League games. Maybe there's some church groups. Like you have to do the research in your community. They have Brother Be Well. They've got the Big Brother program. I have a wonderful collaboration with a man named Timothy Poole. Hooked on fishing, not on violence.
Yes. Right.
And it takes them out in a boat.
Yes.
My son learned how to drive.
He does family night every Thursday night, and he does a men's group. So there are organizations, but we have to make the sacrifice.
That's right.
And I'm asking questions that I get from my past experiences with people. Should men who do not pay child support be allowed to see their children? That shouldn't even be a question,
if they want to.
But are you guys cool with that?
Yeah, they should.
Y'all some nice women, okay?
They should be. I look at it like this. It's not, but I have to keep the focus.
I agree.
Who am I hurting?
Right.
Yeah. That's
who am I hurting?
Good message.
I'm hurting the children.
Good message.
So whenever he shows up, they know this is my father. These are my family members or whatever. And I kept a really strong connection with my ex's family for the sake of my children knowing who their family was.
That's a good message
because he
too.
came from a large family of 9. So they have tons of cousins on that side of the family that I want them to know just as well as the cousins that they have on my side of the family.
But that takes maturity.
Right.
That you being able to continue, I don't know, to continue to build relationship and feed that takes maturity. A lot of people are like, I'm through. He hurt me. Right. We done. Right. And so what does that look like? Because if you're kid-centered, then you do those things. I think that's fantastic.
I have another question. Do men who do not father their own children, are they dateable?
Like who are not, so they're bad parents.
I didn't say that. I didn't use a word. They do not father their own children, in our opinion. Whatever that means to us.
And when you say father, we're talking about being
available to be a father to their children. Are they dateable, ladies?
Not for me. He's not the man for me.
And these are the decisions we made.
I think they can be.
The first thing I look at.
Got you. Okay.
Is how
she said, I think they can.
And I want to hear this say it because I'm like,
can be?
I want to hear it.
I think they can be.
I think they can be. And I think a lot of it has to do with why.
Why they're not seeing
That's not my concern.
I want to know what could be a good reason. I don't even know a good reason why you can't be. Because I want to talk about that because that's
trying.
Or
keep
say that.
Trying.
Say that.
Because I'll say, and I'm not a black, I don't want to go too far. I'm not a black boy, but I'll say my dad was he was not in my life the way I feel like he should have been. And so, but because of the relationship that he had with my mom, however that ended, he also divorced me too. And so when I got older, it wasn't my role to be, so to me, anybody dating my father, knowing that he is like, that should raise a question to me. Like, how do you, so I want to hear this a little bit more.
Well,
like,
because
why is
I
this?
see, and I know other people that have stepfathers who don't have their own natural biological children.
The question was, are men who do not father their own children dateable?
Yeah, because
you're bringing a man around your children who does not father his own children.
Right.
Why?
Because, and I'll just say this, knowing why doesn't this man, maybe he hasn't met someone that he wanted to father children with.
He has children that he doesn't father.
Take care of.
Oh, okay, I'm missing.
Come
So
on.
basically, now I got
he's not a good dad.
He's not taking care of his children.
Men
okay,
who
got
do
you.
not
taking care of
their own children,
Those guys are not dating.
is he dateable? We getting ready to jump
over here
you.
like, man.
I'm playing.
No,
It just clicked.
absolutely
No,
not.
they're not
I
dateable.
wanted to hear it. Like,
No,
okay.
no.
Because
They're
we're
not.
not
Because they're
fixing
not taking
folks.
care of their children.
Listen, we're
So
not
they're not gonna
fixing.
take care of mine.
So if a man shows
Right.
up and doesn't
There
father
you
his
go.
own kids, I don't really care why. It's my opinion. I don't, that I don't think he fathers his own children. We got to stop getting our little fix up care, little,
Yeah.
what is it? With a little kid, the little first aid kit. Trying to
We gonna
fix this
fix you.
man.
Right.
That's not our job.
Right.
In my opinion.
Right.
Okay.
No.
So I was just.
I'm sorry, I
just throwing that out
misinterpreted
there
what you
now.
said.
Yeah, we're about to push her off on a ledge over here. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, I know. But no, really, the conversation is good because if you said, I want to know why, I want to work with this person, if you had that kind of mindset, I'm open to hearing it. This will teach us how to have discussion and disagree and be okay.
Right,
although we were side-eyeing you.
But it
That
allows
I
us
know.
to understand
It's like,
because
wait,
then
really?
you see it allows us to understand, why
Right.
people go down and why they accept certain things, and then you can really. So I like this. Is interesting.
I want to put something in on this. It's real important, I think.
Okay.
If a man is being prevented from seeing his children, I want to see that he's still trying.
I agree.
Even if the mother is blocking it, I want to see that
I
he's still
agree.
trying.
Right,
And
right.
that's the only thing I will accept. And number two, I always look at how a man treats his mom, his sister, his children, or other females in his family, and animals.
Right.
Oh, the
If he-
animals.
yeah. If he's gentle and kind to
That's good.
that group, then he's got a chance. Yeah, because that means he has some compassion.
And the one thing I will say about my son to this day, he never lost family. He always, no matter what, he'd give you the shirt off his back.
Right.
He's going to come. He's going to do, even now with all the things that are taking place in my life right now, I can
there
call
for you.
on him. He go,
Right.
Mom, what you need?
Right.
Where you need me to be? I'm on my way. I'm
Yeah.
there. For his sisters, even though their relationship
Right.
being, from him being in gangs and for a long time involved in a lot of crazy stuff, it destroyed his relationship between his sisters.
Right.
And they're just now,
Starting
he's
to get it
38
back,
years old, and they're just now developing that. And one of my daughters just recently got married, and the lady who did the design, she came to me and she said, I love your son. And I said,
He is a
oh, that's
sweetheart.
good. And she said, he told me, if you need anything, you let me know. He said, you see anybody out of place, you let me know. Because this day, my
Is about
sister
his
is going to
sister.
have everything she wants. And unknown to me, he took care of some stuff and
Very
made sure the
good.
limo drivers was there and
Right.
everybody was doing their stuff. And when my dad was supposed to be the one that's saying, when they, give the bride away.
yes,
and
yes.
my dad was sitting there and he was kind of not there. And my son said, I do. And, he
nice.
stood up and my daughter looked at him like, you
That's
do.
good.
But by them destroying relationships, I mean,
It's good.
we
You're
look
getting
at-
it back.
they
You're
get it.
healing.
They
That's
heal.
the good part. That's
They
the good
heal.
part.
So this is leading to part two to this. This
what
is
this
good.
is really about is the choices we make when raising children, and specific to Black boys.
I think they wake up.
because boys grow into men. And we need strong men in our communities.
Amen.
So we can build families.
Strong
Because we
families.
need the structure of the man and the woman, either parent together in the home or parent apart.
Right.
But you still parent together.
Yes.
And so this is like my way of paving this conversation forward. We already talked about what we can involve our children in, making sure you are thinking about them as much as we can throughout all of our problems. And so this topic does need to be continued because it is important that we do our own healing. Get some therapy if you need to, because these children need us.
Because I think as they grow up,
they
I think
do.
when they grow
And
up,
what's the
they
call
get
to-
it.
Oh, I'm
A
sorry.
call to
No, no,
action.
I'm
We
sorry.
kind of
Go
talked
ahead.
about it. The church
Okay,
groups,
good.
the community groups.
good.
You got to get in there. You got to look it
Good
up. You
role
got
models,
to
yeah.
pay attention. Little league coaches are wonderful.
I
but I
exposed my son to all of that.
and we do the best we can on a consistent basis. But I want to say thank you for watching Coffee and Conversation with Black Women. We'll be back.